Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where I have to admit Trump is right. I, as an American, am getting tired of winning. If this is how you define winning, I'm getting a wee bit tired of it. So yeah, we've had this whole AI arms race, war, whatever going on between the United States and China for a while now, right? You had the Biden administration trying to put, controls on what could be shipped to China, the AI diffusion rules, and then you had Trump doing all the stuff that Trump does. And there's this idea that China is supposed to be addicted, their words, addicted to our artificial intelligence hardware, and that we will maintain superiority forever because we are superior people. Obviously, we will be the best because we are the best. I have been questioning this for a long time because that seems like a lot of supremacist horse crap, right? But anyways, who am I? I'm just somebody in their basement screaming into a webcam. And so what's interesting now is it seems like China is going their own way in the whole AI arms race, and they might be just done with our crap. What happens when you try to fight somebody and they would just walk away and start building stuff, right? I think that's what we're gonna find out with China. F around and find out, I do believe is going to be the catchphrase for the Trump administration. And I fear, as an American, we're gonna find out some new and horrifying things. Anyways, so China, coming from the Financial Times, China bans tech companies from buying NVIDIA's AI chips. China now feels that they can produce AI hardware that is comparable to NVIDIA's. They do not want to be addicted to our crap, and so the Chinese government is now banning NVIDIA inside of China. Why I think this is going to be interesting, again, I've talked about the whole idea of tech stacks. Much of the world has been building off of the same tech stack for decades at this point in time. One of the curious things about the rift between China and the United States is I honestly do believe this is creating basically two branches, legitimate tech stacks, legitimate viable tech stacks that are going to ever more be less and less connected, which will become an interesting thing, especially if you're not an American, when you're deciding what tech stack to build off of, right? When you start thinking about the hardware, when we start thinking about protocols, when we start thinking about programs, when we start thinking about support services and all that kind of stuff. Are you going to buy the American stack or are you going to buy the Chinese stack? And one of the arguments that I've been making is I think from a CTO, CIO perspective, as long as the hardware actually performs, I think there is a better sales pitch for the Chinese stack, right? You can get this quality of hardware at a less expensive price point from a regime that is trying to support, truly trying to support this particular industry and is willing to sell you as much as you want, right? If you want 10,000 GPUs, here's 10,000 GPUs. If you want 1,000,000 GPUs, here's 1,000,000 GPUs. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to kowtow or any of that kind of stuff. You just come with your credit card and you buy as many GPUs or whatever as they can produce versus the American tech stack of you may kowtow and slobber and do all the things that you're supposed to do, and then you still are not allowed to buy the hardware because, our senile old loser of a president drank, is too high on Diet Coke that day and decided your country should not be able to get access to whatever it is. The concern here, right, with the 50% tariffs on India, the 50% tariffs on Brazil, right? We have 50% tariffs on Brazil because Trump doesn't like that Bolsonaro is being prosecuted in his own country for crimes that happened in his own country. That's why Brazil has a 50% tariff on it. Now think about that, right? If you're a CIO or you're a CTO and you're doing risk management, Can you accept that level of risk? Can you accept a level of risk within your infrastructure where if you need to scale up or migrate or do any of the normal tasks, you may not be able to get your hands on the hardware that you need, not because you can't afford it or you don't have institutional knowledge to support it or whatever else, simply because somebody half a world away, right, got high on their supply and has decided your country doesn't get that hardware anymore. Right? Can you take that risk? And I would argue most people probably would not be willing to. So anyways, from the Financial Times, China's internet regulator has banned the country's biggest technology companies from buying NVIDIA's AI chips as Beijing steps up efforts to boost its domestic industry and compete with the US. The Cyber Administration of China told companies, including ByteDance and Alibaba, this week to end their testing and orders of the RTX Pro 6000D, NVIDIA's tailor-made product for the country, according to 3 people with knowledge of the matter. The interesting thing with this too is we've been hearing that the Trump administration has been negotiating with China. How is that negotiation going? The art of the deal. I must, I go in, so I collect art. You can't see it because you're just seeing a wall. Anyways, I collect art. And every once in a while, I will walk into an art gallery and I'll be looking at something. Right? And I collect art, I buy art, I understand art is about the emotion it brings out in you or whatever else. So anyways, but sometimes you'll see a piece of art and you're just like, I just don't get it. What are we doing here with this art? Or what are you trying to do with this art? And then it's funny because you get the little gallery person will come up and say, oh, do you like this piece? And it's like, I just don't really understand like what's going on here? Like what is this supposed to elicit? What is this representation? And then they'll look at you very snottily. Well, it's however you feel. And you're like, no, seriously. Like there's this one artist here in Asheville. I saw it years ago, and it was weird. Very good artist. Technically a very good artist. But it had it seemed like it was Christian scenes. It seemed like it was like very Jesus-y Christian scenes. But everybody was dressed up like Star Trek: The Next Generation. But it wasn't campy. It wasn't ironic. Imagine a fine art piece on some biblical scene where everybody is dressed in clothing that really looks like it comes out of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And so I'm sitting there with the gallery person. I'm just like, technically it's good. I just don't know. What is with the Star Trek: The Next Generation and Jesus? Like, I gotta know. I don't remember. The one was like, well, it either speaks to you or it doesn't. I'm like, oh, yeah, fine. I feel like that's where I'm getting to with Trump and the art of the deal. I feel like I'm looking at these pieces of art, trying to figure out what Star Trek: The Next Generation has to do with Jesus. Trying to figure out how winning a negotiations with China equals them no longer buying our AI hardware. It's like, I don't understand this art. Can somebody explain this art to me? Anyways, several companies had indicated they would order tens of thousands of RTX Pro 6000D and had started testing and verification work with NVIDIA's server suppliers, the people said. After receiving the CAC order, the companies told their suppliers to stop the work. So tens of thousands of GPUs were going to be sold to China, right? We talk about the trade imbalance. We're going to be selling a lot of GPUs to China to try to help that trade imbalance. That's not going to happen anymore. Now, the ban goes beyond earlier guidance from regulators that focused on the H20, NVIDIA's other China-only chip, widely used for AI. It comes after Chinese regulators concluded that domestic chips had attained performance comparable to those of NVIDIA models used in China. Beijing is putting pressure on Chinese tech companies to boost the country's homegrown semiconductor industry and break the reliance on NVIDIA so it can compete in an AI race against the US. And think about it, right? China's got 1.3, 1.4 billion people. They have 4x our population. If they start dumping a lot of resources and forcing people to use their products, that is going to be a hell of a thing to try to compete against. Quote, the message is now loud and clear, said an executive of one of the tech companies. Earlier, people had hopes of a renewed NVIDIA supply if the geopolitical situation improves, and now it's all hands on deck to build the domestic system. Beijing's regulators have recently summoned domestic chipmakers such as Huawei and Cambricon, as well as Alibaba and search engine giant Baidu, which also make their own semiconductors, to report how their products compare against NVIDIA's China chips, according to one of the people. They concluded that China's AI processors had reached a level comparable to or exceeding that of NVIDIA's products allowed under export controls, the person added. And so that's the other interesting thing here, right? They're not saying that the Chinese chips are better than NVIDIA's flagship products, but it doesn't matter because they can't buy the fucking flagship products, right? We are not allowing them to buy the flagship products. The only product they can buy, right, is the fourth best. As Lutnick came out, very cockily said, we're going to addict them on our fourth best AI hardware. And so China, the Chinese companies now only have to compete against the fourth best AI hardware to win the particular race that is currently going on. The Financial Times reported last month that China's chipmakers are seeking to triple the country's total output of AI processors next year. Quote, the top-level consensus now is there's going to be enough domestic supply to meet demand without having to buy from NVIDIA. China's regulators, including the CAC, have warned tech companies against buying NVIDIA's H20, asking them to justify having purchased them over domestic products. So yeah. Dear Lutnick, how's that plan going to addict China on our AI products? I don't think it's going very well. I feel like Lutnick watered down the heroin to such a degree. It's no longer that addictive anymore. Like you have Lutnick there, you have Lutnick, and he has like this pile of heroin, right? He has like this vial of heroin. And he's like, oh, you know, these druggies are really stupid. So, you know, if I can get like $1,000 for this vial of heroin, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna water it down, right? I'm gonna take half of this out and put the other half with water. So then I have 2 vials of heroin. So I can sell them both for $1,000. Now I make $2,000. But wait a minute, if the druggies are really stupid, why don't I only put a quarter of the heroin in and water the rest of it? Now I can make $4,000. And then Lutnick basically like watered down the heroin to such a degree that it's not addictive anymore. He was so focused on making that initial $100,000 profit that he removed all of the addictive components from the heroin. So basically, he was just selling brown water to the druggies. The druggies took the brown water, went, well, that didn't do anything for me. And they went off to use some other drug. They're now hooked on cocaine or whatnot. Apparently, that is how Lutnick does his drug dealing, which might not be a good thing for our society. So yeah, I mean, this is a curious direction for this particular fight, and I think it's manifestly obvious that this is the way it'll go, and it's manifestly obvious that if we continue on the tack that we currently are on, we are going to lose the AI arms race just brutally and horribly, right? China is 4 times our size and population. They are considered the factory of the world for a reason. They are smart people. They are people. They are people, right? People are people. They learn, they innovate, they build, they're motivated, they're disciplined, right? I do not understand this concept where people have this idea that China simply must be a backwater. It is inconceivable that they would be superior to the Western world. It's like, what? Why? I don't understand that line of thinking. So anyways, there we go. So what do you think about this? What do you think about China banning the purchase of NVIDIA's AI chips? What do you think about them doing this at the point in time where we're told by all of our politicians that we must have AI supremacy? What do you think about the art of the deal? Are you like me trying to figure out what the hell the Star Trek The Next Generation has to do with Jesus being crucified? I can still see that image. I'm just like, I don't understand. What am I looking at? That's how I feel today. We are literally getting in our news feed how Trump is negotiating with China so that we are going to win. At the exact same time this is coming out. I don't understand what I'm looking at. Anyways, put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you don't, give us a thumbs down. Leave a comment down below, just like a big dog do. Tell me I'm awesome. Tell me I'm a moron. Do remember silicondojo.com exists. We are going to be having classes again in Durham, North Carolina coming up. You can go to silicondojo.com to sign up for those classes. Once they're on there, become a member. Be a part of the newsletter. Then you'll know when the class comes up. Blase, blase, blase. And with that, see y'all later.